Um, in Nigeria, bad news is always what we expect out of everything, and we always look forward to what is wrong with Nigeria. I am an eternal optimist. I critique to make for changes. So last Saturday was another example of the progress we've made in the electoral technology and conduct of our elections. And particularly at the Athena Center, we were very excited because a few things happened that happened correctly. Number one is that the competition in Osun State was intense. It was so intense that the president has to move back when EFCC interfered in the election in Osun. EFCC's intervention, gave wrong signals about how the election was going to go. But luckily, the president pulled back from that. And that created what I will call the atmosphere for the election. It created an atmosphere for the election. So there was deep competition. Second one was the technology. The technology in Osun was I would say that INEC performed very well in their use of the technology, because the INEC technology made it possible for everybody in the country to see what was happening in real time in the election. And so the competition was intense, the technology worked, and then the people behaved well. Because despite technology working well in some places, we've seen INEC officials and electoral officers behave badly. So, but in this particular case of Osun, the competition was very intense. So we drew 3 lessons from it, and I will come to that later. But what is important about Saturday was that technology was working, the people in the field were working, and the more important one, which is the one I think every Nigerian should be happy about, is that AI played a critical role in this election. And all of us who monitor IREV, who used to spend hours trying to get people, we used to have 300 people downloading from IREV and then entering manually. AI made it possible for us to aggregate the results in minutes. As INEC was going, you could see Yaga's ERAD was working, you could see DataFight was releasing the number, NICEA, one other group, I was watching everybody. Athena's numbers were coming in. So the ability to create what I call darkness over the election was removed, such that before they went for collation, I issued a statement saying, no Form E40G has been filed in this election. For 3,300 and something polling units were already up by INEC. So there are less than 71 polling units. So we don't expect to see anything different from the collation centers. So there was visibility across the country. Everybody had seen the result before we could even go for collation.
So this election, one will say, is an election one can describe as largely peaceful, largely credible. Is that right?
Totally. And not only largely credible, it was that INEC took 2 decisions, and I'm praying they will take the 3rd one that worked well in Osun. They started it in Ekiti. So they made it possible for the beavers to not only capture from EC8A, but to also enter the results into the e-collation platform on the EC8A. So INEC itself did a wonderful job of making their staff to fill the form and enter the numbers into the beavers. Entering the numbers into the beavers puts already a major safeguard. The numbers you enter cannot be more than the accredited voters. So this was particularly helpful in making sure that there is visibility of the results as we progress down the line.
However, they are concerned because the transparency in the process was also a pressure on the possibility of manipulating the process. When everybody saw, as early as 7 a.m., Young Africa's ERAD, in conjunction with China Television, was almost telling us what the patterns of the election, who was in the lead, who was winning what, the figures were already coming in. It didn't make sense for anybody to go behind and say he or she wants to rig the election because it could cause chaos. However,
yes,
the strength of that process is also its vulnerability equally,
yes,
which is the IREV. Yes. See what happened. 87.48%
at 8:48 p.m.
was uploaded.
Yes.
And that
48.
It paused.
Yes, at
for almost 2 hours.
Yes.
Now, it wasn't up to almost midnight before we start seeing the progress that it was coming. And Nigerians started putting pressure. And there are those who think that, what happened? Do we need an explanation from INEC to tell us that lag, that 2 hours, what was happening? Did someone go to the bathroom? Did the network go down? Did the server go down? What exactly went wrong?
INEC needs to explain it. And what was interesting is that we at Athena Center, what we did immediately was to pull the 471 polling units, calculate the number of votes in those 471 units remaining, and we saw that it was not useful.
It was insignificant.
Yeah, it was insignificant. So we looked at the full registered voters in the 471, we looked at the numbers, and we knew that it was a waste of time. And we applied also the voter turnout of 40 thereabout percent, and said, even if 60% turns out in this 471, it's not going to change the result. So what I'm saying is that technology is now our friend. Competition is our friend. And the high number of turnouts made something very difficult in Osun. And you know what that is? It made vote buying difficult. At over 1 million voters, they were buying 10,000, 20,000 votes. So there was not enough money to buy the voters in every polling unit, because it's just not operationally feasible to buy votes at a certain scale. So Nigerians must move away from sitting down and critiquing the system to going out to vote. And the Osun people taught us a new lesson. In some polling units, when they saw that the person there was answering phone call too much, they said, we will follow you to the collation center. They followed him to the collation center. So they...
And not only that, you know what they did? At about 11 p.m. midnight, guess what happened? Some of them trooped to INEC headquarters.
Yes.
Fearlessly.
Yes.
They confronted the guns and the security. And at those, I'm not one of those who will say chaos or disorderliness should be the order of the day. But they said they want to keep vigil. They said they want to see what is happening. Yes. So they mounted some kind of vigil outside of INEC office. And if they were screaming and yelling at INEC office, if you were rigging upstairs, you will know that your life is in danger. Because like they say, dear you, rig election in Kano, you will lose your life. You
won't come out of it.
Exactly.
We know that in the whole country. And you see, the good news is this. And that is the very good news. The politicians who still talk about writing results and going to INEC and falsifying results are like those Africans who were kidnapping our fellow black men for slaves. They had kidnapped a number and taken them to Bonny. I want you to listen to this carefully. They have taken them to Bonny Port and to Port Harcourt. To sell. They didn't know that slave trade had been abolished and that ships were patrolling the high sea, stopping slave ships from coming to Africa. So they kept the slaves. They were feeding them, no ship came. They kept feeding them, no ships came. After a few weeks, they had to release the slaves because no ships came. Reason, they didn't know the world had moved on from slave trade. Now, the people that were loitering around Osun promising that they would change the results were like those slave traders. They were sitting and waiting. They didn't know the world had moved. Yaga was already collecting the results. Athena Center was already collecting the results. Data Fight was already collecting the results. So we knew the numbers from every ward and every polling unit. And guess what? We're going to do it in the 2027 election. So long as INEC, there is only way to rig the election in 2027 is not to conduct it. If you conduct it with this process, by 7, we at Athena Center will be giving you results state by state. How many have been uploaded and what the scores are. We will tell you that. Even if they said no technology will work that day, we will use manual system. We will put over 5,000 people on the 8,000 wards in Nigeria and be downloading it. Because you see, Nigeria just needs to make a move. We need to get out from here. We need to stop this. Election rigging is old. It's not something any leader does. Don't they feel ashamed when they meet other world leaders and you come with a tainted mandate? No, that has gone. So what we need to do now is to say that this leader is the person Nigerians want. Yes, don't worry with our choice. Even if you don't like him internationally, that's their business. This is our choice, who we want. So if you want to elect President Tinubu, please leave that to us. That's our choice. But to now come around and say that election results will be altered, will be done, will be changed, the president will win because he will write it. Oh, no. That's old news. And I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has caught the spirit. When he intervened against EFCC and when the results went as planned in Osun, I knew that he has understood the game. That this game is not a game of those people promising writing results. It is a game of those people who will go out to the people and convince them about what the government of the day has done, whether at the state level, at the local government level. And when we finish with the federal government, we will then come to the state government, state independent electoral commissions to make sure that the people we elect are the people we want. Leave us to the consequences. When we elect and the person doesn't do what we want, we'll stay with the consequences.
If you look at the 1960 and those who say, and I heard some of the leaders who are debating locally in Osun State who said to me, they said, look, Sean, in the 60s, you have heard about the WWW. Because the WWW existed before internet.
Yes.
It was in Nigeria, the Wild West. And it was around the many communities in Osun State were in the center of that uprising, of that revolution. Now, the idea is that there are those who are saying that Wild West.
Like this wonder shall never yes, so yes. Not all listen to this man Osita. So all what he talk and they valid, you understand. So what me they talk now. So let everybody come out. So without without card, you understand. So that we as in we protect our democracy is very important, you understand. So we see how the Osun State governorship election go. You understand? You understand? That no guarantee say that's what 2027 go be. That not the guarantee. But with the help of Nigerians, you understand? So I believe it will also happen. So it may important now. Let us unite. You understand? So as a let us form a strategy. You understand? More strategy. So to encounter or rather to overcome these hoodlums. You understand? We want to demonstrate on that day, on that election day. You understand me? So that is it. I don't want to talk too much. So you also drop your thoughts on the conversation. One of boy.